Hello, my name is Bianca Winship, and this is my assessment video for the University of New England's EDU 749 class. I decided to give my student, Lila, the Fontes and Pinnell reading assessment to collect data regarding Lila's reading accuracy, decoding skills, and insight into her comprehension. This is a common benchmark tool used at my school. The first portion of this assessment has the student read aloud partway through the text, then read in their head, and then there's some follow-up questions and a written section. So here is Lila.
So remember, you're going to read aloud to the black box. There it is. And then you can read the rest in your head, and I'll ask you some questions. Okay. You can start whenever you're ready.
Lenny and Beth loved visiting Aunt Maddie in California. They could always depend on having some kind of adventure on this trip. Aunt Maddie was taking them on a hiking expedition through Mint Canyon.
That's right.
Although Beth and Lenny loved exploring new places and a hike through a dusty canyon didn't sound very appealing. Aunt Maddie ran through her checklist. Hats, check. Sunscreen, check. Trail map, check. Water, check. Looks like we're ready to roll. Aunt Maddie sounded excited. Lenny and Beth couldn't help but feel a little excitement themselves as they waved goodbye to their parents. As they followed the winding trails, Aunt Maddie pointed out all kinds of plants and wildlife. They stopped for a water break. Then Lenny shouted, "Look out for the spider!" And Beth froze. It was obviously obvious to Aunt Maddie that the kids were scared of spiders. Has a spider ever harmed either of you? Aunt Maddie asked. Both kids shook their heads. Sounds like you suffer from arthritis.
What's a big one? There's that. This helps you pronounce it here. Arachnophobia. Arachnophobia. Big one.
And extreme fear of spiders. Aren't spiders dangerous, Lenny asked? I heard about a boy who got really sick from a spider bite. Aunt Maddie nodded. Sure, some spiders, like the black widow, are dangerous.
Nice. Excellent. You can read the rest in your head later, okay?
So you'll notice that Lila reads relatively fluently with some word-to-word phrasing, pausing and self-corrections. She does fumble on some multisyllabic words. She substitutes expedition for expectation and winding for winding. Most of her errors are visual mistakes instead of substitutions for meaning. As Lila reads, I was scooping the word clusters to help me determine Lila's fluency. I'm looking for 3 to 4 word clusters, but Lila is inconsistent, so I have her at a 1 overall since she's more consistently reading with 2 to 3 word clusters as she gets going. Lila does read some punctuation well. She's got some run-on sentences with like missing the period at the end. But she does do especially well when she reads dialogue, and she uses great expressions. So she recognizes the quotation marks. When I do F&Ps, I try and give students some time to use word attack skills, but if they pause for too long, I give them the word, like in the case when Lila was working out the word obvious. In the text, it gives in this particular text, it gave Lila the phonemic pronunciation for arachnophobia. Like many of the words, Lila struggled with this, and she pronounced the initial sounds, but the middle and ending sounds were lost. What I really like about F&Ps is that they also measure students' ability to read in their heads, which is what they would do as readers anyway. And the comprehension questions would elicit information regarding their comprehension skills for reading aloud and to themselves. When Lila reads, it gives me an opportunity to fill out the recording form. I'm going over Lila's errors and determining whether they are self-correction errors based on visual substitutions or based in meaning. This gives me greater insight into Lila's strategies. I did not time Lila's reading rate. This is a part of the assessment I usually leave out unless I encounter a student whose reading rate is exaggerated, meaning they read way too fast or too slow, and it affects their comprehension. So once Lila is done, I'll ask her how the level feels. This is something I like to do to get kids thinking about Just Right books. So when they do their own shopping, they are making good choices about choosing Just Right books.
So, how did that level feel?
Good.
Yeah? Do you think it was a just right level, a reachable level, like a little bit hard or a little bit easy?
I use that word reachable. This is a teacher college term that identifies books that are just a little bit challenging to push some students to read more complex text. And they really want us to find that reachable level when we do F&P assessments. So the next section is the comprehension questions. They have 3 types of questions embedded in the comprehension section. Questions from the text where students summarize the elements of a fiction story, sharing the problem and the solution or the ending. Lila does a great job of reciting the elements of the story in sequence when prompted.
It's like in the middle, but not really, not too hard.
Okay. So we'll go on to answering some questions. All right, my dear. So what was the problem in this story?
Lenny and Beth did not like spiders.
Okay.
And they didn't want to go on the hiking trip until they started to go, then they got excited.
What else can you tell me that happened?
They were scared of all the spiders, so Maddie said, "Do you guys have
arachnophobia?"
Yeah.
Nice. And what happened in the end?
They got to be interested with spiders.
How did that happen?
Because they saw a trapdoor spider, and they got to learn about it.
Thank you. Why do you think Lenny and Beth were afraid of spiders?
Because I think they think that they're scary.
And how did they change in the book?
Because the aunt said that spiders are more afraid of you than us. Just like you, they're afraid of us.
So with prompting, Lila retold the story. She even included some specific vocabulary from the text, like arachnophobia and trapdoor spider. I typically jot down students' responses and note when they use specific vocabulary, so when her teacher reads over the assessment, they can get a glimpse of how she answered them. So we're in the second phase of the questions, and they're titled questions beyond the text that require students to infer and interpret the characters. You'll notice she was able to answer these questions using her own experience with spiders. The answer they really wanted to elicit was that Lenny and Beth weren't scared of the spiders anymore because they were interested in the spiders, and that knowing alleviated any fear they may have had. But Lila went with a notion that Lenny and Beth weren't afraid because Aunt Mattie said that the spider is smaller than them and would be more likely to be scared of humans because humans are bigger. Lila also struggled to recall precise language to explain Lenny and Beth's feelings.
Because they're bigger than the spider, so the spiders were scared.
Then the people are. Yeah. Okay. How did they feel at the end of the story?
I think they felt, don't know how to explain it. Like, they felt excited but calm at the same time.
Excited and calm at the same time. Why do you think they felt that way?
Because they were calm at the end because they learned that spiders are afraid of you more than them. And they were excited because they asked their parents if they wanted to go on a hike.
Again? What do you think they'd say?
They said that next time the parents should go with them.
Ooh. All right.
So this final section of questioning is about the text, and it calls upon students to synthesize the message or lesson the author is trying to teach. A lot of times this section will also ask for students to find details or evidence in the text, or even explain like why the author may have chosen that title. Lila went with a simplistic message that people should be afraid or shouldn't be afraid of spiders, but then added that people should also go outdoors.
Ready? And what was the most important part of the story, you think?
That they learned that spiders are more afraid.
Okay. And what do you think the author was trying to teach us? What was his or her message?
To not be afraid of spiders and go near the outdoors.
And you said go in the outdoors?
I can make a spider with my hand.
Nice. So the last part of this activity is to write your thinking a little bit. So it asks you here to explain the ways Lenny and Beth changed in the story and what caused them to change. And you can draw a sketch if you want to say.
So this final section of the Fontes and Pinnell reading assessment is the written section, like I said before. I don't always do this part of the test, but wanted to get a clearer picture of what Lila can do when she writes about her reading. The prompt said that she could draw a picture. She ended up drawing a before and after picture with Beth and Lenny standing on a rock screaming to show that they were afraid. And then in the after picture, had them covered in spiders with big smiles on their faces to show they like spiders. So as a result of Lila's assessment, I would want to work on multisyllabic words to help her decode. I'm not too concerned about her fluency. It does not seem to impact her comprehension, and she reads at a reasonable rate in her head. I think with that work, that decoding work with multisyllabic words, that her fluency will improve. I can also support her with some of those run-ons that she was doing with ending punctuation. I would like to work on character feelings and the use of precise language, as well as using evidence from the text to assign those feelings. This would also support determining the theme of the book by analyzing text evidence to glean the message. We can also do some read-alouds using picture books. Finally, I'd also want to work on using evidence from the text to support Lila's writing about reading. She has a great imagination and loves to draw more than write. She has noted that she takes a long time to write and would rather draw. I could use some sentence starters and prompts to support this work. I was curious about trying the next level R with Lila. Her comprehension fell in the satisfactory range, so I'd like to see how she does with a more complex text. but there are certainly elements of the level Q that she needs to work on too. Thank you for listening to my video.